Going to the doctor is hard enough, but when you have to hear bad news, or even worse, a tactless remark like the people in this video, it makes it one of the most unpleasant experiences out there. And no one had it worse than the woman in our last story, whose doctor was probably the rudest medical professional of all time. I now know that I have hypermobility, but before I was diagnosed, I was constantly dislocating my knee, and no one knew why. I was an otherwise healthy 20-year-old lady with high pain tolerance. Each time after one happened, I'd see a doctor, hoping for a diagnosis. I ended up seeing a really rude doctor. This doctor decided that I wasn't having dislocations despite documented evidence from other medical professionals. According to him, dislocations were too painful for me to imagine, and I probably just had bursitis. This absolute idiot lectured me for 20 minutes about how I couldn't possibly have dislocations while I sat there in sheer shock and horror. I got so mad, I stood up and, without a word, twisted my right leg hard in just the right way to cause a complete dislocation of the patella. I maintained eye contact the whole time, didn't even whimper, and hit the deck like a bag of bricks. I usually have good pain tolerance, but the sheer anger made me almost superhuman that day. I'm sorry the poster had to go through that just to show their doctor there really was something wrong with them. But man, what a memorable and disturbing way to prove a point. This happened when I was 33. I always went for yearly checkups at the doctor and took care of myself. I told my doctor that I was having to pee frequently and my stomach hurt. She interrupted me and said it was normal. She did a pap that day and made a weird comment about me being closed. I also bled during the pap, which I don't usually do. I started having pains a few days later, and I thought I might have a UTI. I called the office and they had me go pee in a cup, but I didn't hear back for a few days. I was in a lot of pain, so I called again. I found out that they destroyed the sample because I wasn't scheduled correctly. They called in antibiotics, but I was still having pain and the symptoms of a UTI, so I went up there. They didn't allow walk-in appointments, but had me pee in a cup again. This time, I was positive for a UTI. I got more antibiotics, but the pain still didn't go away. I made myself an appointment at an OB/GYN and had an ultrasound. I was 6 months pregnant by that point. I found out I was pregnant and found out the gender on the same day. I genuinely had no idea, and I didn't really have any of the normal pregnancy symptoms. If she had listened to her patient, we could have caught the pregnancy at 3 months rather than 6. I was at high risk because of her negligence, and the stress of having 3 months to prepare for a baby didn't do me any favors either. And here I thought doctors were always making sure to ask or check if their female patients are pregnant before they do anything else. This doctor must really have had her head in the clouds if she missed a pregnancy for 6 whole months. 6 years ago, I was treated for acute myeloid leukemia. I went through chemotherapy and total body irradiation with a stem cell transplant. My 28-day biopsy after my stem cell transplant results came in, and my doctor literally came in, stoic as could be, with paperwork printed out. He just said the transplant didn't work, and I still had residual cancer cells in my marrow. I simply just accepted it and didn't even look at the paper. My brain was just thinking of all the different scenarios. As the minutes went by, I had a second attending come in and say that there were still other options, which had me reassured. But then I had a third doctor from the Middle East come in after her, and he told me I was still young and there were other treatments we could try, so it lessened the shock at that point. I had always been pretty optimistic, even with such a poor prognosis. Fast forward another 14 days. I had another bone marrow biopsy to see how much the cancer had progressed, to see how we could attack it. There were no signs of any cancer cells. Ever since that day, I have been cancer-free. My donor cells went after the residual cancer cells and saved me. Even when they do it thoughtfully, getting a dire diagnosis can make for one of the worst interactions with doctors. It's one of the scariest experiences that you can have, and this is basically the worst news you can get. Thank goodness the treatments they tried actually worked. I was in an accident that seriously damaged my knee. I saw a physiotherapist who said it appeared the muscle was in a dormant state and the joint was twisted. They gave me a few exercises, but never made a follow-up appointment. I thought it would heal on its own. I was unfortunately wrong. A few years later, my knee was in the same condition, but I decided to play rugby. Stupid, I know, where I did some more damage. I could barely walk 20 feet without it swelling and the muscle going into spasm. I saw a doctor who kept saying I'm a lazy couch potato and need to lose weight. I was over 200 pounds, so a little on the large side. He arranged an appointment a little over a month later, telling me to try to lose 6 pounds or more. Fast forward to the following month, and I was 12 pounds lighter than last time. He just looked at me in disgust and said he refused to help me if I'm not going to lose weight. And he didn't stop there. He opened the door and shouted into the hallway that my elbow won't get any better if I won't lose weight. I told him I had not mentioned my elbow. I had lost weight, and if he wants to start shouting stuff like that into the hallway, he can eat me, and I want a second opinion. He got me blacklisted from the surgery I needed for my knee. I lodged a complaint against him. I spoke to someone else who put me on a waiting list to see a physiotherapist again. It's been nearly 10 years. I've asked about it, and they said I needed to speak to the doctor who put me on the waiting list, but he's retired. When I spoke to someone else, they said there's nothing they can do but recommend I stop being a couch potato. Why do people like this even get into the medical profession if they don't want to help people? Some doctors think their medical licenses are a license to judge, but this guy really did take it to the next level when he prevented the OP from getting the help he needed. When I worked at the hospital, I was the one who said something terrible. I told someone that her mother was coding, but it was the wrong family member. I have a decent excuse, but it was horrible. It was late enough at night that I was the only doc on, with just a handful of nursing and tech staff. As we got into those quieter hours, one by one, the other doctors signed out their patients to the overnight staff and leave. I got called into a room to run a code. They had already worked on this woman for 20 minutes en route in the ambulance. I wasn't looking very hopeful for a meaningful recovery. A woman in her 40s appears in the doorway and says she's the daughter. If I'm the only doc on, I have to do the intubation, run the code, and speak with the family, sometimes all at the same time. Since she's turned up and appeared to recognize the patient, I failed to confirm the patient's name with the daughter, and instead launched into the delicate questions. How long had she been ill? How did this start? It turns out the daughter was actually the daughter of the previous patient in that room, who had been moved out to accommodate the arrival of the coding patient. When she came in, she told the front desk that she didn't need any help finding her mom's room, so she brought herself back. This was very unusual, but the code was monopolizing the staff. Her mom had the same hair color, and there's all kinds of tubes obscuring her face during these times. The good part? Her actual mom was just fine, 2 doors down. I will never again gloss over confirmation of identity, no matter how obvious it seems. Hey, unlike the other doctors on this list, at least it seems like this one learned a lesson from her mistake. It really sounds like it could happen to anyone. This happened a few years ago. I had a lot of stress and I was getting terrible headaches, so I went to see a doctor. I run my own business. He sent me for some tests and an MRI because of the headaches, since I never have had headaches before. He told me to take a vacation and relax. I was probably just overworking myself and stressed from my business. So I took the whole family, wife, kids, dogs, on a nice getaway to the Smoky Mountains and rented us a nice private cabin and had 5 whole days to relax and take in the beauty of the Smokies. We got to our cabin around 4 p.m. It was amazing. Indoor pool, billiards table, indoor putt-putt golf, and an arcade room, all to ourselves. I know it sounds extravagant and expensive, but we actually paid like $1,000 for the whole week. I thought it was a great deal for everything that was included. I was so excited to enjoy the week. I woke up the next morning excited to be with my kids. Well, at 8:30 a.m., I checked my email against my wife's advice. There's an email from my doctor with the results of my MRI. It read like this: Mr. So-and-so, the results of your MRI have been reviewed by our medical team, and we have found a large brain tumor on all of the scans. Please contact us immediately to schedule more testing and to speak with a neurosurgeon. That's the scariest thing a doctor ever said to me. Timing is everything, and this is the worst timing possible. I mean, try relaxing on a vacation after reading that. I hope the OP's okay on this one. Years back, I had surgery on my pinky finger to reattach a tendon I tore off the bone. The surgeon gets in there, finds no tendon to reattach, and with permission from my wife, takes a portion of the tendon from my wrist to replace the missing one and completes the operation. I thought that was it. Being the klutz I am, I fall down some concrete steps and feel some pain in my arm, go to open the door to my house, and feel a pop in my forearm. Immediately, I know what it is and call the doctor's office to see if there's anything to be done. I get the surgeon's assistant/trainee and tell them what happened and ask what to do as I have a lump in my forearm and pain. She says they didn't operate on my wrist/forearm and basically my pain medication is making me confused. No matter what I say, she keeps dismissing me. So I call back and make a regular appointment for the same day and turn up. Guess who comes into the room with the hand surgeon but the assistant/trainee I fought with earlier. She hears me retell my story and the whole time is looking at me like I'm wasting time and what's wrong with the world. After I finished telling my side of things, I just sat back. The surgeon says, well, the lump, pop, and pain are probably the stitches in the tendon in your wrist coming undone. Making full eye contact, I just say, oh, really? Very pointedly. The assistant didn't apologize, but never met my eyes for the rest of the visit. Unfortunately, I was the ultimate loser, as there was nothing to be done to fix the spare tendon in my wrist, so I had to just let it shrivel up and be absorbed. It was really creepy having a lump slowly shrink up to my elbow and disappear. I can't believe the nerve of this trainee, totally overstepping her bounds and writing off someone who isn't even her own patient. Kind of scary to think that that's the kind of person who wants to enter the medical world, when they clearly like ignoring patients and taking shortcuts. A doctor once told me that I had bipolar disorder. That's probably the worst thing that a medical professional has ever told me. I was medicated for it, but it didn't work, so he kept increasing the dose. Eventually, I was taking 800 milligrams a day. I was so doped up I couldn't read. I dropped out of college. I couldn't sleep without it anymore. And when I tried, I stood up for almost a week. I had to move back in with my father because I wasn't able to care for myself anymore. I ended up under observation. The doctor even considered shock therapy. After almost 10 years lost, I switched doctors, found a good therapist, and started the process to taper off the meds. It turns out I'm not bipolar. I'm autistic. I don't have mania. I have sensory overload and hyperfocus. I act weird when put in chaotic situations because they overwhelm me. After 2 years of therapy, neurologist and psychiatrist appointments, and hundreds of pages of diaries and reports written, I finally got a proper diagnosis and I'm free from that. But I'm not getting those 10 years back. My mom died during that time, and I'm not getting her back either. I'm in college again, but the opportunities I lost during the last 10 years are now gone forever. And the doctor who misdiagnosed me, he's still out there. It's so scary to think that these bad doctors are out there, still practicing medicine with people's lives hanging in the balance. I feel so bad for the poster here, and all the time they lost due to an incorrect diagnosis. I was struggling to regulate my blood pressure due to a tachycardia syndrome, aka POTS. As a result, I passed out while I was in the shower. I knew I had a concussion from hitting my head during the fall, and my girlfriend decided I should go to the emergency room. I had been fainting on and off every few hours for a few days, and with the concussion, we were both worried. I passed out on the car ride and nearly collapsed inside the ER. After checking in, a phlebotomist came to draw my blood, and she was muttering under her breath. It was all about how I was a waste of time, saying it was too busy to be taking care of someone healthy, saying I was just looking for painkillers, assuming I was faking everything. And she proceeded to tell my girlfriend that she shouldn't have brought me in. Then, after she left, someone else came in. She looked between me and my girlfriend and said, "This must be your sister. Is your boyfriend on his way?" And I had to tell the lady that this was actually my partner who brought me in. She gave the typical, "Oh, I see," response and left. I was taken back for a CT, and I was told that everyone passes out. It's not a big deal, and concussions happen all the time, so I shouldn't have even taken up their time. Low blood pressure isn't a big deal, and POTS is just something teenage girls make up for attention. After the scan, a nurse came in to tell my girlfriend that the doctor would be in shortly, and my girlfriend had asked if there was something they could do because I was still struggling to stay conscious and I wasn't acting right. The nurse told her, "If you notice any changes in her behavior, we'll see what we can do. But there's nothing we can do right now." My girlfriend said that nothing about my behavior that day had been normal. And given the fact I don't remember the days prior to the ER visit, I'm going to make my best guess and say something was probably very wrong. An hour or so later, the doctor came in and looked around the room. He said, "Oh, I thought surely your boyfriend would be here by now." He continued, "Well, when he gets here, let him know that the doctor says you do, in fact, have a brain. I've seen it firsthand. You must be a smart young lady." That was the most condescending thing that could have escaped his mouth at that moment. He said, "Looks like you have a concussion. There's nothing we can do for you tonight. It just takes time to heal. Go home and rest, and if you notice any changes in your behavior or mood, come on back." No, thank you. I will not come back, actually. I just spent $1,500 to be told I have a vital organ that he apparently does not have. Cool. That was the most frustrating interaction with healthcare staff I have ever had. Unbelievable. This has got to be grounds for a lawsuit if I've ever heard one. To have not just one, but every medical professional who looks at you act so rude and condescending? Absolutely brutal. I was only 30 years old, but I had to be hospitalized. I had a heart infection, and it was so bad that I needed a valve replacement. Open heart surgery. The doctor who did my surgery was absolutely brilliant. A few days before the surgery, she said, "You may want to get any close family to come and visit, and sort out any important paperwork, as it's not guaranteed that you'll wake up again." I obviously pulled through, but her honesty was as reassuring as it was scary. Even after 10 years, we still send the odd handwritten letter to each other. We also had these stupid personal televisions at each bed, which cost about £2 an hour to watch. The money would seriously rack up as I was in there for weeks, but she got me a code so that I could watch it for free. Sometimes, honesty can be the scariest thing of all when you're really sick, but it sounds like it was kind of just what this poster needed. And at least this doctor cushioned it with a little free TV. I had a video appointment, which always sucks, but this was a new low. She told me she didn't have much time and to be quick. I tried to explain my symptoms as fast as possible. I had been very sick for weeks, with possibly a urinary tract infection and a respiratory infection. I also gave the other ideas I had, based on my symptoms. She told me I had valley fever and told me all about it over chat. We got cut off at 15 minutes. She said, "Great, I'll send you a prescription." I was honestly pleasantly surprised, at first. When I saw what she'd written on it, I wanted to scream. It said she actually thought I had somatic symptom disorder, aka that I was making all of this up and was perfectly fine. Her prescription was for a freaking psychologist. Why did she even talk to me about valley fever then? So I made an appointment with my normal doctor and had a few tests done. I had a respiratory infection and a freaking kidney infection. After 10 or so days of meds, I was fine. My gosh, I was so angry at that quack. Wow. She was not only tactless, but straight up dangerous. Kidney infections are so bad, and painful too. I seriously hope she got into trouble for this. That is the last of our stories about medical misdeeds for today. But check out the rest of the videos on our page for more wild, real-life stories.